suggesting that we start a statewide project.
Yes. I've got a lot of compliments on that presentation, Dr. Harris.
Well,
People really enjoyed it.
very good. So it's going to take a lot of, special programs like that to put Stockport on the map, and we appreciate you doing that. Of your own initiative. You didn't beg you to do it or ask you to do it, you just did it. That's great.
All right, get ready, Dr. Harrison.
Want to count me down?
It's time. We're waiting on you. Oh, I'm muted. All right, Dr. Harrison, we're waiting on you.
Well, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the historic Smith-Robertson Museum and Cultural Center via the Central United Methodist Church Family Life Center. This humanities forum focuses on the Tupelo, Mississippi area. Good evening, welcome, third of four Stockport Women Midwives Humanities Forum that will be telling, hopefully, a good story. The title is the very recent perspective of midwives from Smith Road to the right. Who they were and the space they occupied.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome all of you again to the Stockport House project, one that has endeavored to share and show the story of midwives, African American midwives in particular, and the many obstacles they faced, the many wonderful stories that they've gathered over the years, the great work that they've done. We have gone and we forged forward in this process, and we have actually come up with so many wonderful names of people and their stories, and we're just so very happy as the Smith-Robertson Museum and Cultural Center to be a part of this. We have had a memorandum of understanding together, I think for more than 4 years now, and it has been a wonderful experience, and we're just very happy to continue with the Stockport House project, Dr. Harrison and her staff, and we're just very happy to be so very much a part of this, so that we can tell those stories, share those stories, help people to understand just how important these women were in our communities. And so again, thank you all for coming again. Thank you for allowing us to share with you and being a part of this process and this project. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. We appreciate your group and welcome you and your leadership at this organization. Thank you. We are also indebted to Reverend David McCoy, minister at Central United Methodist Church, and his leadership at the Church Family Life Center. This is a historic, adapted,
Can anyone see the PowerPoint?
louder.
Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
We need you louder though, TT will.
Sure. Can you see the PowerPoint okay?
It's showing something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can see your screen on your next live screen if you want to open it up.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Let's do technical issues. Good evening, my name is Deatrice Roberts and I'm glad to have you guys joining us this evening. Like Dr. Harrison mentioned, I'm curator over at the Smith-Robertson Museum, and I will be discussing the periods associated with the Granny Midwife service and the historical context of the Scott Ford houses. And so with this historical context, we have it divided into 4 periods. The first period would be 1619 through 1865, which was the height of the Granny Midwives and their power. Granny midwife is a generalized term used to describe midwives after the colonial early American and antebellum slave period. The health practices of these granny midwives came from a variety of tribes, largely on West African traditions. Childbearing in the South for both black and whites was largely in the hands of traditional African midwives who had been brought to America as slaves, which is why the term granny midwife has more popularity in the South. As keepers of traditions and rituals, granny midwives helped mothers deliver their babies using their knowledge, experience, and following items from their midwife bag. A Bible to read while waiting for birth, massage creams for the mother and their family, scissors, smelling salts, rose water to use as needed, peppermint and chamomile tea to calm the nerves, ginger, mayapple, hot peppers to encourage labor, black hot herbs to ease the pain, talcum powder in a comb, and an assortment of minerals, plants, and herbs. In 1854, Drs. Duke Pryor Blackburn and A.H. Brenham opened Natchez Infirmary for the cure of all diseases of colored persons. It was a for-profit hospital to care for Natchez's African American population. The second period, focusing on lay midwives, takes us to 1865 up until 1921. During this period, granny midwives continued to serve as advocates and healers, delivering most black babies born during this period. Dr. Lee played an important role because he ushered in several new practices, such as sedation in the beginning of labor, the use of forceps, extracting the placenta, and the use of other medications to make the process much smoother. But these techniques made the practices of midwives appear unsafe. By 1890, 34 black physicians and surgeons practiced in Mississippi. By 1900, 13 of them formed the Mississippi Medical and Surgical Association. None of these physicians nor white physicians delivered babies for the low wages accepted by granny midwives. The third period begins in 1921 until 1948. And this is when the Shepherd-Towner Act was passed. The act provided grants to states for public health nurses to train midwives. The grants were for training of midwives by public health nurses who provided supervision and control by yearly renewal of permits, countrywide meetings, concentrated educational programs that functioned as cooperative with county health departments, and not a program of promotion but of supervision. The Shepherd-Towner Act introduced many new regulations that require midwives to obtain permission slips to perform services, have their homes inspected for cleanliness, moral character review and assessment, training classes, and medical bag inspections. Midwives were no longer allowed to carry teas or Bibles. The Mississippi State Board of Health hired nurse Lori Reed to find and record the number of Black midwives in Mississippi's 82 counties. Only 1,000 Black midwives were identified to participate in the following: training by public health nurses, monthly meetings with granny midwives to discuss problems arising from recent births and deaths, receiving instructions on basic infant and maternity care. Mary D. Osborne was appointed Director of Public Health Nursing, initially funded by the American Red Cross in 1922 until 1924, when Mississippi State Board of Health took over. The Manual of Midwives gained national and international recognition. By 1924, 17 states administered classes for midwives. 22 states viewed granny midwives as a necessary evil and intermediary until the complete medicalization of pregnancy and childbirth. In 1930, Mississippi had approximately 1 physician for 3,300 Black persons, but 1 white physician for every 500 whites. So the need for granny midwives were critical within the Black community. The fourth period took place between 1948 through 1980, with the 1947 Hill-Burton Law and the gradual decline of granny midwives. A big contribution to the decline of granny midwives is Ms. Lucy Macy. In 1948, Ms. Macy introduced a retirement program that forced granny midwives to stop practicing. They were told that they were too old to have their license renewed. By 1970, 58% Black babies were born at home. By 1975, there were 259 certified lay midwives. By 1982, there were 15. Around 1980, the Mississippi Department of Health stopped issuing midwife certificates. Direct entry today means that midwife was trained by another midwife and is not certified. Generally, the midwife is the primary care provider throughout the pregnancy, labor, birth, and postpartum care. Mississippi law states that midwives are exempt from medical practice laws. Midwife Virginia Scott traced her lineage back to 1619 through her mother, Mary Green Scott, who was born around 1843. Mary Green Scott and her mother, Charlotte, were born into slavery, but later married a prosperous farmer who provided a foundation for Mary's and her midwife daughter, Virginia's success as homeowners at 136 and 138 East Coast in Jackson, Mississippi. Virginia Ford was a practicing midwife serving the African American community by attending births and providing basic medical care during the Jim Crow era, when African Americans had little access to most of the area's doctors and hospitals. This will conclude the information as it relates to the 4 periods of the historical context of the granny midwives, as well as the Scott Ford homes.
My original dramatic monologue entitled African American Midwives, Tupelo, Mississippi region. And I am just delighted that Dr. Tony Hill has come based upon my invitation. Of course, I am mentioning her in this dramatic monologue. Between Lee and Pontotoc counties is Union County in the Tupelo, Mississippi region. In 1942, Millie Simpson, Hattie Stone, Luanna Bell, Rhoda Morris, and Maggie Van Zandt were African American granny midwives in Union County. Cheryl Owen recalled that Granny Hattie traveled daily to New Albany and waited in front of the courthouse for mothers who needed her to bring babies. When her mule died, she walked the 10 miles each weekday. Several decades before this time, physicians set out to mute granny midwives and shoved them in the background. But little did they know that African ancestry had long ago breathed into their souls the art of catching babies from their mother's wombs. An African American midwife with Bloomington Moon Midwifery Services, Dr. Tony Hill, was called forth to continue the legacy when she was only 12 years of age. Tony eventually sat at the feet of African American grand midwife Salama Sandra Abdullah Zaman from Georgia. Salama has worked across southern and other states in America, Ghana, Honduras, and other parts of the world, doing what she loves to do: deliver babies the traditional way. For more than 35 years, she has caught over 4,000 babies in homes, hospitals, and birth centers. If you go in with an attitude of respect and love, you see other people as if they are your sister, your daughter, your mother, she said. The clock kept striking, and in 2005, Hurricane Katrina swept Tony and her family from the Mississippi Gulf Coast to Tupelo. She brought with her traditional midwifery skills and traveled up and down the hills, mixing herbs and calming mothers, catching babies, teaching others to heal the village. Since her midwifery training in 2008, Tony has caught thousands of babies. In the long-running kinship of the African diaspora, her village of love inspires mothers to embrace wholeness in preparing for new life to come. Here in Tupelo, this executive director of Northeast Mississippi Birthing Project prepares and comforts expectant mothers for positive birth experiences. She travels widely and supports families in hospitals and homes. During this coronavirus pandemic, she uses telemedicine, schedules clients one at a time. has Facebook groups for mothers, offering resources and information, and has more home visits. On the go, she keeps her black bag packed with herbs and tools. Listen to what Meridian resident Kiana Gale said about her. Before I started seeing Miss Tony, I had an OBGYN. Before my son was born, I had 3 miscarriages. Miss Tony and I established a good relationship. I had 2 home births with her. I'm a nurse, but I learned a lot from Miss Tony. I ended up becoming a doula. Everybody wants her. She is very well respected, and she books very quickly. If it wasn't for Miss Tony, I don't know where I would be. She's trying to get me to go to midwifery school, and I might just do that. Tony met us many throughout her journey. When she was a Girl Scout leader, she impressed upon one of her Girl Scouts to be a change agent, as midwifery is God's work. She is now in midwifery school in Oregon. The young are carrying on the legacy. Seeing the next generation move with it is very gratifying.